Abandoning the beliefs that hold you back is a short course that will help you make more sales. People used to say to me, how do you get up for one of your sales seminars? And I would always say, coffee and belief. Sometimes I needed coffee, but I never lacked for belief. Abandoning the beliefs that hold you back is so critical because problems of belief are more critical than problems of sales technique. If you don't believe in what you're doing, you'll never apply all of the skills that you've learned. So this is the way the human being looks. We come to the job with values, beliefs, attitudes, roles and skills, and then behavior. And the way we behave in front of a client or the way we behave in a Zoom call or on the phone, that will lead to the results of the marketplace. So the trouble is with values that you come to the job with them. Calmness is a value, compassion, work ethic, an achievement history. I always like to ask prospective salespeople, tell me your 10 biggest wins in life. And if they can reel them off, I know that they're an achiever. Service, you have a service mentality, you want to help people. Humility, empathy, and discipline. Discipline's big. All right. So you got to work on your beliefs. They're malleable. So are your attitudes, but your values are pretty much there when you arrive. That's your early childhood experience shapes your values. So your mom and dad, your early teachers, your grandparents, that's where your values come from. So I'm not going to work on your values today. I want to work on your beliefs. Whatever you believe is true, even if what you believe is not a fact. And so you've got to sometimes unlearn things and quit believing in things that are holding you back. So I'm a small town boy from Newark, Ohio. That's the south side of the square in Newark. That's my parents' house. They lived there for over 50 years in Newark, Ohio, small house, small town. I'm a small town boy. I went to Baldwin Wallace University, then it was only a college. And I majored in political science because the Vietnam War was going on, but I also had a business minor and a speech minor. So I was thinking, well, I could do a few things. And I went to the Washington semester. That was a program where you studied in Washington, D.C. at American University. And then I got to D.C. I interned in Congress in the Cannon House office building. That's not my intern class, but that's what, that was what it was like back then, interning in Congress. Well, after 6 weeks of that, I knew I didn't want to be in politics. And then I took the LSAT. So see if I could get into law school. I bombed on it. And so when I got back to Newark, Ohio, I walked into the local radio station because I wasn't going to get into politics. I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I figured, well, I'll become the next Walter Cronkite. I'll get into radio news, and then I'll work my way into television. Then I'll work my way to New York. And well, it didn't happen. Anyway, this is Bob Pricer. He was the general manager. I walked in to see him. I'd known him from my growing up in Newark. You might notice he's standing beside Neil Armstrong on the right to his left. So when you're a broadcaster, you get to rub shoulders with some pretty cool people. But Bob Pricer was sitting at his desk, and I said, Mr. Pricer, I would like to be a news person. And he said, I said newsman, because they didn't call them news people back then. I want to be a newsman. They said, well, we need a salesman, but we don't need newsmen. I said, well, I'll work for free. I just want to do some reporting, get some practice. He said, no, I'll put you on in sales. I said, but I'm a political science major. He said, well, that won't mess you up too much. You can read, you can research, right? Okay, you'll be good. And so I thought, well, plan B, I'm going to get my foot in the door in sales. I'm going to work my way into news. Well, this is a small town. I wanted to be the next Walter Cronkite, but the sales manager had a brand new Cadillac. Mind you, this is 1972 or so. The sales manager had that car. The news director drove a 7-year-old Chevy Vega. He was always complaining about, oh, I had to be at the city council meeting till 11:30 last night. Now they want me in here doing the news. So I said, well, maybe I should get better at sales. Maybe that's where good things will happen for me. And anyway, I wrote The Accidental Salesperson. You can see it behind me, but I was the accidental salesperson. And fortunately, this Bob Pricer, Ohio Broadcaster Hall of Famer, great guy, he sent me to some training. I went to the RAB School for Salesmen. Again, 1972, we called them salesmen. There were one or two women at the school, but RAB, the Radio Advertising Bureau, put the school on 5 days, $500. He said, the only thing is you've got to pay for your transportation and your gas. And I said, okay, but he's paid $550 for the rest. So I went to Rutgers University, New Brunswick, New Jersey, 5 days of training. That's not the class, but that's their continuing education center. I got back to WCLT and I sat down next to my desk mate, Tom Dolan. And Tom would smoke a Winston and a Salem back to back. And at 10 o'clock, his ashtray would look like this. And he turned to me in the morning and he said, what'd you learn at that school they sent you to? I said, well, Tom, I learned about the needs analysis process, where you try to find out what they're trying to accomplish and then how to write a proposal that will meet their needs and present that to them in a meeting. Chris, hold on. This is Newark, Ohio. This market is different. People won't sit still for a long interview like you're talking about or a written proposal. This market is different. Well, I just gotten out of college and then I just gotten out of 5 days of training, and I wasn't going to waste that training. And I wasn't going to listen to a guy that smoked one cigarette after the other and had failed in his own business and had, been a clothing store owner, but now he's selling radio. So I said, I'm going to do it my way. And there was a guy named Ron Klein Buick, and this is the only thing I could find on the internet about Ron Klein. Was he used to sponsor some runs and like half marathons or whatever that was, but he would have his fun run or whatever. And I went to Ron Klein Buick and I started doing these things with him, and needs analysis, written proposal, spec spot. And 2 weeks later, Tom Dolan came into my office and said, I've been hearing Ron Klein Buick commercials on the air all afternoon long. How'd you get him on the air? I said, Tom, if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. Now, all I had done was not believe that this market is different, that the training I had was valid, that human nature is immutable, that all people want to be approached and helped, like I learned in my RAB School for Salesmen. And I closed him, and I closed a lot of other people using those techniques. So when you start to think this market is different, you just got to zip it. That's what that's reminding you to do. Your market is not different. So that's part one of abandoning the beliefs that hold you back. We're going to talk about some other things tomorrow. I've got a great story about a person who said, I have a unique situation in my market. We'll talk soon.